In our last episode, we had a little fun in La Paz. This time around, we have a van adventure with Marga and head out into the desert to explore the historic mining town of El Triunfo.
It's a lot cleaner than outside of my shirt.
Today's a big day. A van adventure! And Marga's driving. This is gonna be great! Not only was this big, bad, trusty steed hopefully gonna take us out into the desert and back, but Margot was gonna be our captain. And everyone knows the captain's number one job is to put the pedal to the metal and burn rubber.
Talk about your racing stripe at all?
On the van?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little embarrassing to talk about that when everyone's passing me. You know, these are just not my favorable conditions here.
Right. Not feeling with the headwind?
Or on a road with other cars. It makes me look bad.
But even with a slightly less than racy van, we eventually made it out into the desert to the little town of El Triunfo. This small and quaint, dusty little town that's tucked up into the mountains of the Baja has quite a bit of interesting history. But for most who stop in El Triunfo these days, it's just a place to stop, stretch your legs, and maybe have a bite to eat before pushing farther on down the road to the bigger cities of La Paz or Cabo San Lucas. But for this crusty old sailor, it's hard to not dive into a little bit of the history or imagine what life was like back when this was the biggest city on the entire Baja. But before that can happen, I had to take care of a little business first, because far away on an open grill there was the smell of some cooking meat, and I can't pass that up. Oh man, that's really bad. That's incredible. Increíble. That was delicious. Never met a taco I could pass up. It's a cool little town. For those who like to wander and explore, El Triunfo is a small but worthwhile stop, with twists and turns around dusty little corners. But what really put this place on the map was its rich mining history and this giant smokestack. This dusty little town's got some pretty interesting history. 1750s, this was the first active mine on the whole Baja. And for a time, it was the largest populated city on the Baja as well. Depending on which source you read, 4,000, 10,000, whatever it is. It was big. Now it's just tiny and dusty. But it's got some cool stuff. And at the center of it all is La Ramona. Built in 1890, this 47-meter tall chimney was one of the tallest in all of North America. And now it's one of the few remaining industrial chimneys still standing. El Triunfo mine de la Santa Cruz was started in the 1750s and would continue producing ore all the way into the 1920s. But just like a lot of mining towns, when the ore dried up, the population moved on. But now, all these years later, it's an interesting place to spend a day rummaging through some old bits of history. I love old historic sites, especially if you can walk through and see how things were built, how people lived back in the day. Look at this old place. Definitely a rough life. Hot and dusty. Brutal. Pretty great view though. And of course, wandering through an old dusty little town and rummaging through old bits of history, that works up a bit of an appetite. Luckily for us, El Triunfo has just what the doctor ordered to quench a thirst and feed a hungry old salty sailor. And everything on this menu, it comes from local farmers and craftsmen, and you can believe it's delicious.
So now you're doing full-on fish sausage.
How did that turn out? Do you have to like clean it and take the head and tail off, or do you just shove it in the casing? And...
Oh, you just jump in the casing, don't you? It's like, oh my God.
Nice job, Brenda.
And if you ever wondered how rough of a life mining in the old days used to be, just outside of town, there's a pretty big reminder. Wait for me! From the 1800s all the way up to today, this place holds countless stories from this dusty little town. But a pretty interesting day in El Triunfo. It couldn't last forever. Since I was getting creeped out, we were out of there.
Are you guys all ready to rumble?
It's actually a lot cooler up there.
We made it! That was a fun trip. Nice driving, Captain.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. That was fun.
Come on. Thanks for everything.
Oh, you're welcome. The gallant steed. Like, if I hit it, it'll turn off. Oh,
thank you. That was so awesome. Appreciate it.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
After quite a bit of fun, the next morning it was time to get back to work. Here in La Paz, when we came here, there was two big things we really wanted to get done. First and foremost, it was hang out with some friends. The other thing was get some work done. These windows, these big windows, if you watch the first episode from this season, you know, we came back to the boat and one of our big windows sprung a leak and did a whole lot of damage while we were gone. So, in an effort to not have a repeat performance from last season, we're pulling all these windows off and resealing them, which is kind of a bummer and kind of a pain in the butt. But preventative maintenance, you gotta do it now and then. Alright, so what we're going to use for this is Dow Corning 795. This is a structural glazing silicone sealant. And this stuff. This is a double-sided glazing tape. It's an open cell foam, which you might think is counterintuitive, but I'll explain about it in a minute. And I know some of you are going to ask why I'm using this stuff and not something else. It's because I know it works! Back when I had a day job, I was mainly a metal worker, but I did a fair bit of glazing as well. This stuff I know sticks to plexiglass, which can be a little suspect with a lot of different sealants. So this works. This stuff works as well. So we're gonna use them both. So what I'm gonna do with this double-sided tape is I'm gonna run it about 1/4 inch from the edge of the inside of the window frame. And by doing that, once the sealant is cured and we go back on the inside of the boat, we'll have room to put a bead of caulk and finish out the inside. But this double-sided tape, the idea with this is that with this much sealant going on the window frame itself, or the house frame, it's got so much depth and thickness that it won't actually fully cure if we had a closed cell foam on the inside. So this open cell foam tape, it allows the inside of this window frame to breathe, get moisture to cure the sealant. And also, since it's a double-sided tape that's got some pretty sticky stuff on it, it'll hold this window in place until the sealant cures. And for those of you who want info on this stuff, I'll put a link down in the video description along with the sealant. So once those window frames are fully prepped and cleaned, then we take a whole lot of sealant and squirt it around the edge. Then we'll take a putty knife and using the double-sided tape as a depth gauge, we'll make a nice, smooth, even surface. And once it's all filled in and nice and smooth, you peel off the backing from the tape and then squish on the window with a whole lot of pressure. Well, we got just about everything done in La Paz we needed to do. Caught up with some old friends and we sealed all 8 of these big windows. That's a success. So we're getting out of here. Tomorrow we got some good weather. We're going to start moving our way north up the Sea of Cortez. But I think a lot of you realize that these videos aren't exactly in real time. By the time you watch this one, we'll realistically be about a month up north in the Sea of Cortez already. So they're a little behind, but the last time we did this trip, which was a couple of years ago, there was about 6 weeks from the time we left La Paz till the time we got internet coverage again. 6 weeks, and we survived, barely. But that means that if you leave comments or questions down below, I won't get to them for a while. So be patient, I will get to them eventually. But I think what I'm going to try to do before we get into the videos of the Sea of Cortez, I'm going to try to do one more boat tour. So maybe that'll be next week. Well, that's it. We're out of here. Moving north. See you when we see you.